The woman in our story, who we will call Jane, has allowed us to share her experience with sexual assault. Jane was only a toddler when a family member began touching her inappropriately. The abuse Jane experienced lasted for years, and for a while she was able to block out what happened. But when she became a teenager, something triggered and brought up all those memories again, reminding her of the pain she was trying so hard to forget.
I come from a very, a higher middle class family. I have two very loving parents, siblings, I went to a good school. I had a normal upbringing, but, sexual abuse doesn't really discriminate.
But Jane became a victim of sexual assault when she was less than 4 years old.
I was asked about it whenever I was about 4. And so it had been happening before I was 4.
And she says the person assaulting her was her grandfather.
It was something that he wanted to do, and he did, because I was so young.
The abuse continued until Jane was in the 4th grade. Her mother began to suspect something was wrong, so Jane told her.
She basically told me that it was inappropriate and that I wasn't supposed to let it happen again. And that is how it was handled.
Jane said her mother confronted her grandfather and tried to keep her away from him, but it wasn't enough.
He denied it, and I don't know how often she confronted him, but I do know that she did a few times.
And as the abuse continued, Jane felt like nothing would change.
I was like, why are we even doing this? He's not going to admit to it, and it won't even do anything. It's not going to change anything if he does admit to it. I mean, we didn't do anything, in my head, we didn't do anything about it before or when you first found out, so what's the point of confronting him now?
Jane eventually got to a point where she blocked out all the vivid details of her abuse until she was 15 and those memories returned.
It was in the middle of the night. I was on the phone with a friend, a very close friend, and I think that I just couldn't mentally take it anymore.
We see several people that were molested or raped as children or young adults, and they don't deal with it for several years. And then when they get into their teenage years or their adulthood, then those things come back to them.
Kathy Williams is the executive director of Oasis Women's Shelter in Lake Charles and has met a lot of women like Jane who usually know their abuser.
We warn our kids about the strange man in the park, and it's not always that. It's the nice guy next door. It's the uncle that you've been going to baseball games with. It's the female teacher that you really trusted in your life. There's not a face to it. It can be anybody.
The number of victims in Lake Charles is rising. Last year, Oasis served 802 victims of sexual assault. 700 of those were adults, and 102 were children.
Calcasieu, of course, had the most. I think as far as sexual assault victims, Beauregard had 55, Jeff Davis had 10, and then the rest was kind of Calcasieu.
Kelly Barnes is the community educator at Oasis, and it shocks her to see these numbers rising each year in our area.
It kind of threatens everyone's sense, or everyone in the community, their sense of safety. This is going on everywhere.
But sexual assault is continuing to increase in our area year after year. In 2014, the Calcasieu Parish Sheriff's Office worked 310 sexual assault cases. In 2015, that number increased to 359, and by 2016, it had jumped to 423. Last year, 212 victims were between the ages of 10 to 17, while 148 victims were from birth all the way up to 9 years old. Chief Deputy Stitch Guillory says the hardest cases for his detectives to work are the ones that involve children.
Well, I can say every time, you don't just leave that at work. It comes home with you. When you lay in the bed at night and go to sleep, you think about your victims.
For many victims of sexual abuse, therapy is necessary so they can move forward with their lives.
It's a lot of times good to sit with your peers who have experienced the same thing that you have, and kind of help each other get through it.
For over 10 years, Jane has been going to therapy to work through her trauma. Jane's mother never reported her grandfather, and he died without ever being held accountable for the abuse they say he inflicted on Jane.
It's such a deep-seated kind of damage that not being around the person isn't enough. That, okay, I'm not around him, it's done. It's more, you have to find the closure within yourself.
Jane has worked to move on with her life, graduating college, becoming a wife, and even a mother. But even though the physical abuse is over, for Jane and other victims of sexual assault, it never really ends.
It will always be a part of me, you know, but I think what I am working towards is it making it a positive part of me.
Those who have become victims of sexual assault or know someone who has experienced sexual assault can reach out to the Calcasieu Parish Sheriff's Office or Lake Charles Police Department to report a case. You can also reach out to Oasis, where they are open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and they provide free and confidential help. You can find all that information out on our website at watchfox29.com and kplctv.com. I'm Miranda Whittington, now at 9.